Hello and welcome to the EDHRECast, where we're all about commander, data, and dad jokes. I'm Joey Schultz, and I'm joined by my fantastic co-host. He can't get over how truly appropriate it is that the Aerith Final Fantasy card has a dies trigger. It's Matt Morgan.
So Joey, I was recently at the grocery store and the kid bagging my stuff asked if I wanted paper or plastic. And I told him, I really don't care. Why don't you decide for me? And he said, you have to pick, sir, because baggers can't be choosers.
Oh no, goodness. It's a miracle that I haven't broken my nose with how many facepalm-worthy moments we opened this show with, Matthew. Goodness.
It has been plentiful for sure, but I'm also a little upset that you're pointing out that Aerith has a dies trigger because, spoiler alert, I didn't know. I knew that. I've played Final Fantasy before. It's only been out since I was like 7.
Oh yeah, no, that felt like a very particular skewering from design right there. They were just like, hey, 100%. Everyone, bummer, which is like terrific design, but man.
I'm still not over it, so what you gonna do?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, Matt, it's the two of us on today's show. What are we chatting about in this week's episode?
So we are going to take a look at the top commanders over the past few years. There's been actually a pretty monumental shift at the top of the most played commanders. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take a quick look at that. And then we also want to talk about, could there be any new future top commanders in the pipeline soon?
Indeed. We're taking a look at the top commanders of sets we've seen so far and trying to ask which ones will stick around. Because yes, there's been a lot of shifting around, including a new number one most popular commander. So I'm excited to get into it, but we've got a couple of shout outs to do before we do. First, Matt, there was a huge announcement from FlyQuest that we can finally talk about. I'm really excited, man.
Yeah, we finally can talk about this, actually. So, coming up, June 14th and 15th is going to be the FlyQuest Dual Land, which is going to be an amazing streamer event hosted by FlyQuest and Aetherdrift. It's going to be a Final Fantasy pre-release with some of your favorite content creators.
Yeah, they're pairing up Magic and other gaming creators to face off against each other with Final Fantasy cards and two-headed giant games, and they're competing for a cash prize and a $5,000 donation to a charity of their choice. And Matt, you and I are going to be there enjoying all the action.
Yeah, both of us get to be there. We're going to be participating in the weekend's festivities and activities. So for good causes as well. We're so excited to be working together with FlyQuest, with Aetherdrift on this amazing event.
Yeah, so you can check all of that out at flyquest.gg/dual-land. That's duel as in we're dueling against each other. So flyquest.gg/dual-land. And again, that is Saturday, June 14th and Sunday, June 15th. Check around noon Pacific time. This is a great crossover event with EDHREC and Aetherdrift and FlyQuest Gaming. It's going to be an amazing time.
Well, and Joey, another company that we're just thrilled to get to work with and partner with just in general is Dragonshield. They're just makers of some of the best sleeves out there. You have the sleeve creator, which is something that's just awesome. If there's a unique event, a picture, a piece of art that you love, you can put it on a sleeve now. It's just such an amazing thing that you can do to personalize your decks even further. So head over to Dragonshield if you want to check out some of the best sleeves out there. We actually have some other future collaborations with them coming up if you're going to be at MagicCon Las Vegas. So make sure you come by and see us over at Dragonshield's booth. So there's a ton of great things going on with Dragonshield, and we love getting to work with them. So make sure you check them out to protect all of your valuable cards out there.
Also, if you want, you can support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. As a thank you to our patrons, we have a ton of awesome perks like our patron-only Discord, and we've been doing some Patreon-exclusive content too. Matt, you've been giving us some behind-the-scenes info about your decks. Dana's been going over some of his too. You've been having a whole bunch of fun with that exclusive content.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a nice way for us to say thank you to all of our supporters over there on Patreon. People have been enjoying the content over there. So if you want to check it out for yourself, head to patreon.com/EDHRECast, and you can see all of the content over there. That's patron exclusive. And also another thing, Joy, that is a patron exclusive is the weekly shout out. You have to be a patron in order to be in the running for this. So this week we want to give a very big shout out to Scott Hetzer, who probably his favorite Final Fantasy character is Seltzer.
Yeah, Scott Hetzer, thank you so much. You're the coolest. We're sending you a digital hug. Thank you so much, man. Okay, Matt, with that, we're getting into our show here. There's been a lot of movement. There is a new number one
ton of movement.
Top dog in the format. The Ur-Dragon has officially taken over the top spot as the number one most popular commander, usurping Atraxa Praetor's voice, which has been the top commander for like 8 years?
Ages.
It's been there for a while. So quite a development, quite a shakeup that got a lot of the internet talking.
It definitely did, but it's kind of a huge thing worth talking about all over the community, though. That's kind of how big this is. I mean, like you said, Joey, Atrax has been at or near the top pretty much from the day it was printed. It did not take very long for Atrax to skyrocket up there because it kind of fits into any given strategy you could be doing. Just has that ability where at the beginning of your end step, you proliferate, but also has flying and vigilance and death touch and lifelink. So if you want a Voltron commander, Atraxa fits the bill. If you want to do Infect, whatever the strategy is, Atraxa just kind of de facto does really, really well at supporting that archetype.
Yeah, it has been famous for a long time, and yet the Dragon has just spiked up above it. We actually released a video last Monday about this development and whether it will stick. Will this 5-color, very powerful Dragon commander that makes all of your dragons cheaper, will it stay in that top spot, or is this just a flash in the pan type of moment because of the popularity of Tarkir or Dragonstorm right now? There's a link in the description of this video if you want to check out that video. It contains some amazing time lapses of data on EDHREC 2, so you can see the shifts in popularity. So we definitely recommend checking it out. But that development has definitely gotten you and I thinking a lot about the top dogs in Commander, Matt.
Yeah, it has. It just, if nothing is sacred, if Atraxa truly can to lose the top spot, then like what else could happen with the top commanders of all time? And there's been some commanders that have seen huge surges of popularity. I think the most recent one that just kind of jumped up just because of how well it was doing, what it specifically was doing, kind of the Elves version of the Dragon, is Lathril, Blade of the Elves. It's the number 8 commander in the past 2 years. That one, just as soon as it was printed, I feel like everybody kind of knew there's just nothing else you can be doing better in Elves. And Elves already was a super popular, creature type to build around. So having Lathril come out there, that just jumped so high so fast.
Yeah, and it's even seen movement lately as well. This is a graph from that video that we mentioned that came out last Monday, but we'll throw this on screen if folks want to see some movement. This isn't tracking which commander is the top number 1, but just how much activity there is around those commanders. And we can see some activity for things like Lathril, Blade of the Elves, and Krenko Mob Boss after they got reprints in the Magic Foundation set at the very end of last year, which is helping them stay very relevant within the top 10, because Krenko Mob Boss, the Mono Red Goblin commander, is currently the rank number 4 most popular commander. It's kind of always lingered around the top dogs spots, but now number 4, all right, cool. It's doing very well for themselves. And so things like reprints can really affect the winds of change here a little bit.
We need to give a special shout out to Edgar Markov, which that's the de facto best vampire commander that you can be having too. So there's a common thread here is between all these commanders that we're talking about right now, like it should be noticed that of the top 10 commanders, half of them are dealing with a specific creature type. Whether it's the Dragon, Edgar Markov, Krenko, you also have Lathril, and Myram Sentinel Worm. All of those just are doing something incredibly powerful in incredibly popular creature types. So it makes a lot of sense why the de facto best choice for that creature type would be so high, because there's just so many people that want to play a super powerful deck in a popular creature type. So really there's 2 things working in these 5 commanders' favor.
Yeah, and taking a look even closer at that graph there, one of the biggest spikes that we see at the end of that graph is Edgar Markov just shooting up after it got a reprint in Innistrad Remastered, which is one of the first times that card has been available for a reprint, because it used to be it was nearing $100 or something, and finally Edgar Markov actually got a bit more available. So there have been quite a lot of shifts that have propelled some of these commanders back into top favor. But I think it's also fair to point out that there are these winds of change that sometimes mean the commanders will crest back down, and we're seeing some of that activity begin to die out. So personally, I think that could kind of be the case for Edgar Markov. I'm not saying he's going to fall out of the top 10 or whatever, but he got a big spike of activity that I don't think is going to sustain itself very much over the rest of 2025, where we're not going to get much further vampire support. So there are a couple of those commanders that will shoot up but then wane, which is a pretty common thing for us to see. And for us in this episode, we want to ask which ones will shoot up but stay there, or will a whole bunch of these have that waning problem over time?
Yeah, I hate to kick Atraxa while she's down. I mean, she's only down to number 2, but she's down a little bit relatively. That's still a huge jump. But I hope that Atraxa, just the numbers continually wane down more and more. Every other commander here, you can see why they'd have a little bit of a shot in the arm to keep them popular. The Dragon and Myram, both, you get dragons in every single set. Same with Krenko Mob Boss. There's always some sort of dragon, goblin. A lot of times there's elf representation in a lot of sets that gives an opportunity for people to kind of remember that these things exist. Whereas Atraxa has been replaced by so many more specific things you could be doing in a lot of those kind of generic strategies that was propping up Atraxa.
I mean, yeah, all three of Ur-Dragon, Kaalia, and Miram got a boost around the time of Dragonstorm for obvious reasons. They all care about dragons. Whereas meanwhile, the overall trend for Atraxa has been gradually losing activity over time, as we're seeing her on this graph here. It's not nearly as steep or fast a decline as we saw for Sauron at the beginning of this graph here. That was a swift drop-off, like a cliff's edge, still amongst the top 10 commanders, but a very, very fast decline in deck activity for Sauron. But anyway, I agree with your point. The dragon commanders are very specialized already, whereas Atraxa, set by set, new commander by new commander, is getting less unique in her abilities over time. So it isn't just about, oh, there's a new set and that makes something spike, but also something we can draw from the data here is noticing that the overall trend of commander design is shaking some foundations.
I hope that just that trend continues to exist a little bit, kind of too. Same with Kenneth Return King. It's barely hanging on, just inside the top 10, and not even by that big of a margin over number 11, which is Pantlaza, another hyper-specific creature type commander. So I think that the general commanders, the broad ones, just being so generic that the numbers continually wane. I hope that does happen, because it just means that there's more variety in the format and just in general.
I share your hope. I don't know if I think Atraxa will fall very far for whatever it's worth. She's still like several thousand decks away from hitting like even third place, for instance. And, again, my full opinions in that video from Monday. But overall, the lesson that I want to take away from this data is just that we can't ignore that the top dog spot is no longer an untouchable position. If Atraxa does keep having her territory eaten away little by little by new legends that come out and play in some similar sandboxes, then she could end up stagnating while others grow a bit. And if that is the case, then potentially the Ur-Dragon could stand to hold on to its new spot for a pretty good chunk of time. So we don't just want to apply that question to the top 10 most popular commanders. There's been some movement among them, and that's really interesting to see. But we also want to apply this question of which ones will last and will there be any that wane for the commanders that are coming out this year in these most recent sets, because some of them are capturing a lot of people's attention. But again, will they last? Will some of these be a little bit flash in the pan, or are some of them going to rise to be the cream of the crop in that upper echelon? So Matt, let's move now to the top commanders of Final Fantasy and see which ones may actually have that staying power. Getting into a couple of the numbers here, so far, the most popular commander that is of the Final Fantasy cast here is Y'shtola, Knights Blessed, the Esper Precon commander, the 4-mana 2/4 vigilance. Beginning of each end step, if a player lost 4 more life this turn, you draw a card, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana 3 or greater, Y'shtola does 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. This one is showing up with nearly 6,000 decks in the EDHREC database. So that is our top commander of Final Fantasy so far.
Yeah, so far is a big disclaimer that we have to give for Y'shtola. I get it, but it also feels like it's only so popular because it was one of the very first ones that we saw. It's the face commander of a precon. I yes, very powerful, and it's a fun deck, but I don't think it is the best commander when I look at the card. Yeah, it's really cool. You get to draw a bunch of cards. People love doing that. Life gain, life loss, but I don't know. It feels like this is kind of nebulous to be the most played commander from a set so far.
I agree with you. I think the current popularity of Y'shtola results from it being one of the first cards that was previewed for Final Fantasy, which kind of like got a firestorm of like, ooh, let's dabble with this and put some lists online before the set is, of course, fully released. But it already got its biggest surge. So I think that it is poised to be eclipsed by other commanders from this set, personally.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious candidate is probably the most broken commander, probably the past couple years. I think we have to just put that out there. Vivi Ornithir is the new Izzet hotness. Absolutely. It's 1 in Izzet colors for a 0/3 that has the ability to pay 0 mana to add X mana in any combination of blue and or red mana where X is Vivi Ornithir's power. Activate only during your turn and only once each turn. Well, there's an ability that also is going to let you get significantly more than 0 power. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Vivi Ornithir, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. There's an and. It does. This card is so ridiculously pushed. It blows my mind that this made it to this stage.
It's very, very, very powerful. Nearly 5,000 decks so far. But again, this is a more recent reveal compared to the previous Y'shtola. So personally, I think not only is this going to end up as the most popular commander from the Final Fantasy set,
Absolutely.
I will not be shocked if it rises to like within the top 3, just among the top Izzet commanders in general. It's a beloved character and it's powerful as heck. So that's a potent combination for popularity.
If Vivi has, those two things that you just mentioned are huge in terms of how many people are going to build it. Because not only is it just a beloved character from one of the more popular Final Fantasy games, it is so pushed. Like it's just crazy to me that this card got printed the way that it is. Not only whenever you cast non-creature spells in the form of +1/+1 counters, and it deals 1 damage in addition to the mana ability. Like, this is such a blatantly powerful commander. And I understand that people want to play with powerful things, but this feels like it's going to be at CEDH tables, it's going to be at high level tables, it's going to be at social tables, because not only is it just hyper powerful, it is just such a popular character, and there's so many things going for it. If this isn't the most popular commander from the set, I will be shocked.
Yeah, truly. But honestly, I don't know, Final Fantasy IX, that was my game. So I'm happy to see like, hey, get the love. But I do feel like Vivi probably would have gotten the love, even if it wasn't pushed and cracked quite as much as this is. People are already talking about all the combos that it can do. But yeah, it having that competitive staying power, as well as just being an endearing thing to begin. And also a little bit, it's a callback to the old Mizzix of the Is Magnus, which I think a lot of players kind of, maybe Spellslinger players got their start with Mizzix, but it has faded over time. This kind of calls back to it and reignites some of the passion for that strategy, I would wager. So there's so much going for Vivi that, this one has the staying power in ways that others might be eclipsed. I think Vivi will only continue to rise, and it could be very meteoric indeed.
I think it could contest for like one of the top. I mean, it's really hard to contest for like the top 20 slots, I would say, just because those are commanders that have been out for a long time. They've been super powerful, super popular. I do believe that Vivi has the potential to crack that top 20 list for sure.
The only thing that might stop it is the availability of Final Fantasy problem, but that's going to be true for all the commanders we discuss here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Third in line from Final Fantasy is Sephiroth Fabled Soldier, the mono-black dual-faced Sephiroth. When it enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature to draw a card, and whenever another creature dies, it's got a Blood Artist effect of draining someone for 1 life and giving you 1 life. But if you do that 4 times, it will flip into the back half a 5/5 flying 1-winged angel. As this creature transforms into Sephiroth, 1-winged angel, you get an emblem with that Blood Artist ability, which ignites my aristocratic heart a little bit.
That's silly.
My passions. It's very good. And whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice any number of other creatures to draw that many cards. This is currently showing up with about 2,500 decks, the third in line from Final Fantasy so far. What is the fate that we see for Sephiroth in the future?
I think it's a little silly that they're giving you an ability to give yourself emblems on creatures for the first time. That seems a little unhealthy, but very, very powerful. I am actually kind of surprised because, yes, it is a super, super powerful effect, but it is mono black, and it's really, really hard for monocolor commanders to have a lasting impact. I think that's one reason that Krenko's popularity, being one of the top 5 commanders routinely, is such a big deal, because it is mono red, and that just does not happen. So being monocolored, that is a big deal for Sephiroth Fabled Soldier to be as popular as it is, just because players love having more colors in their decks.
I think also the other like top mono black commanders that it's competing with, like Kirik, Son of Yawgmoth, Meronar, I don't see it unseating those.
Probably not.
Because Kirik paying life for your mana, that opens up a lot of stuff that you can do competitively. Meronar being a great home for those rat colony effects. That is also a certain unique thing that will draw you to a monocolored deck as opposed to a multicolored deck. Whereas Sephiroth, I think it's such like an iconic character, and that drives a lot of interest here. And so that's why we're seeing a surge of decks for this character. But it's so good in the 99 of decks too, that I almost wonder whether that might begin to eat away at its popularity as time goes on over the next year or so.
Yeah, the power for Sephiroth truly lies in going into the 99 and just probably being one of the best, if not the best, kind of aristocrat type of art, like blood artist type of effect out there. So it's going to be a super popular card. I just don't know how much lasting power in the command zone that Sephiroth Fabled Soldier is going to have.
Yeah, a good comparison might be Braids Arisen Nightmare, the mono black braids that lets you sacrifice stuff to force other people to either they have to sacrifice something or you get to draw cards. And that one's showing up with 7,400 decks, which is good. It's in the top 5 of mono black commanders.
Which is, still the number 5 most built mono black commander, which is like, that's still a ton of decks.
Yeah, and so this might eclipse Braids, but I don't think that strategy specifically is eclipsing the other stuff we see at the top of the mono black table.
No, for sure. Well, and it might actually have a similar curve to what the number 4 commander that we're going to talk about is, which is Cloud X Soldier. So that's the one that comes from the Final Fantasy VII Precon, which is the Naya commander. And it's a 4/4 that has haste. When Cloud enters, you attach up to 1 target equipment you control to it. And whenever Cloud attacks, you draw a card for each equipped attacking creature you control. Then if Cloud has power 7 or greater, you create 2 treasure tokens. So this is just kind of competing in a very dense space, which is the base Boros Naya equipment matters type of commander.
Yeah. If anything, I'm surprised that this one isn't like jumping up a little bit higher yet so far. This one feels to me like it could continue to push even higher because Cloud is such an iconic character. Like, I'm a Final Fantasy IX homer, but Final Fantasy VII is the most popular and one of the best selling for a reason. And being able to live that with this character feels to me like it will be enough reason for it to continue to push upward and onward.
Yeah, I think the character definitely is going to carry a lot of weight, just being a 3-color version of arguably the most iconic Final Fantasy character of all time. It's one thing that Vivi has going for it. I would be curious to see if the density of equipment matters type of commanders really takes away and just gives it too much to compete with, especially in its own set too, because there's a little too many hoops to jump through for me, at least for my taste. Like, I'm still going to get the precon. Don't get me wrong. I'm still going to get the precon.
Yeah.
But Cloud X Soldier, I don't know if this is going to have lasting staying power compared to some of the other commanders that we're going to talk about.
Okay. No, that's fair. I think for me, not only the belovedness of the character, but also equipment is of the archetypes on Commander. You can go to the EDHREC page and see the tags and the themes.
Hyper popular, yeah.
Yeah, equipment is the number 6 most popular strategy. And the current top equipment commanders that are the most popular within that archetype, when you go through that page, we're seeing Sir Gwyn, which is Mardu. We're seeing Nahiri, Forge and Fire, which is Boros. So I wonder whether an extra splash in here combined with the charm of the game might help it push in there. But you're right, it does have some competition. Even the Fallout Dogmeat deck is kind of giving this one some competition. So tempered expectations does seem pretty healthy. So I totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah, so what about commanders that aren't showing up super popular yet? Is there anything you expect to rise? Sometimes there's sleepers out there. What would you peg, Joey, as something being a sleeper?
Ooh, yeah. I think my initial surprise with Titus/Titus, Yuna's Guardian.
It's Titus, come on.
I'm trying to satisfy the entire internet. I'm sorry.
It's not going to happen.
They're going to be mad no matter what I do. It's true. But that one also the head of a Final Fantasy Precon and doing +1 counters, which is also within the top 5 most popular archetypes of the game. That one only so far having 1,500, nearly 1,600 decks to its name compared to the other offerings that exist. That one feels to me like, is this waiting for its surge? Because I feel like that's another game that people are going to flock towards. And it feels like such an interesting version of that archetype, passing counters around, proliferating. This one felt to me like, oh, really? That low? Was my reaction when I saw where it was on the page. So I'm wondering whether Titus is going to end up getting even more deck lists to its name once everything is officially released, if people can get their hands on this product, which is very difficult to acquire.
The pre-sale prices are a little out of hand. Not a little, very out of hand. But yeah, Titus is a really, really cool one. I really like it. Being able to manipulate counters, not just +1/+1 counters, but just any counters in general, I think is going to be really cool. There's a lot of proliferate stuff, but also that Bant proliferate kind of exists too. So, but at least we have a good baseline. One commander I'm kind of surprised hasn't been built too much, just because it is an iconic villain and it's doing something super powerful. It's Kefka Court Mage. That one also seemed like everybody jumped at just how powerful and how Grixis-y this commander is. So Kefka Court Mage is 2 mana plus Grixis colors for 4/5 human wizards that reads, whenever Kefka enters or attacks, each player discards a card, then you draw a card for each card type among cards discarded this way. But then Kefka also has the activated ability where you can pay 8 mana and have each opponent sacrifice a permanent of their choice, and you transform Kefka, but you only do it as a sorcery. And on the backside is Kefka, Ruler of Ruin, which is a 5/7 avatar wizard with flying. And whenever an opponent loses life during your turn, you draw that many cards. It is so easy to make opponents lose life, just incidentally almost. You're going to draw so many cards, and players love drawing cards. I don't know if you've met a Grixis mage before. If it says draw a card, they're going to do it. I mean, I think people are going to play a lot more Kefka Court Mage once they start getting their hands on it.
I'll say that I hope they don't, because I don't want to discard my cards.
It just puts them in the graveyard for you, though, Joey. Like, I thought that's what you wanted to do half the time.
I like discarding the cards of my own volition. The cards that are then left in my hand are my reanimation spells to get them back. And if I lose my reanimation spells, then I become a sad panda. So
that's fair. But yeah, I would be surprised if Kefka Court Mage doesn't get a little more popular. It does so many powerful things. It does so many things in a color combination that already is very, very popular. And it's a super popular character that there's a lot going on for it.
Yeah, it's interesting trying to be a weather vane here, trying to like test where the winds will actually fall with each of these. There are some that seem very poised to continue rising further and further once the set is in full force and has been out for some time. And there are some that feel like maybe they caught initial attention, but might, instead of continuing to wax, they will wane a little bit over time. I'm curious to see the developments, but I like our predictions for this one so far. This is not the only set that has come out, of course, in 2025. There are other sets that we want to get to, maybe some fates that might befall the Dragonstorm cards of Tarkir, for instance. But Matt, before we get to those, I think we have to pause to do some challenging of the stats, because there's a lot of other data on EDHREC that we also want to see change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into challenge stats real quick, but we can't do that without giving a very quick shout out to cardsphere.com. So if you want to get your hands on any of these cards that we're going to talk about, or just any Final Fantasy cards, any of these top commanders, maybe this episode's inspiring you to build a new deck, cardsphere.com is one of the best ways to get those cards and just make sure that your money goes further than ever. It's a fantastic way just to make sure that, with things getting more expensive, with Final Fantasy being so expensive and hard to get, Cardsphere is just making that easier than ever. It's bringing the power of a marketplace to you. You're able to set your prices for when you buy and sell cards. So if you want to check out Cardsphere, go to cardsphere.com/EDHRECast. Probably just the best way to get cards these days, I would say.
Yeah.
Absolutely check out Cardsphere for all these cards that we're going to talk about in Challenge Stats and more.
This episode is brought to you by our favorite deck builder, Archidekt. Archidekt offers so many features to make your brewing experience super easy, from custom categories to helpful sorting methods and giving you tons of data about your deck too. Color breakdown, mana curve, but also things like your probability of drawing certain categories of cards at a certain time in the game, which I'm using to make sure that I have a better chance of drawing both my graveyard filling cards and my reanimation spells on time. Plus, their deck playtester is undeniably the best in the biz. Super intuitive game actions, from start phases to tapping groups of cards to copying tokens to proliferating all your counters, are all handled for you with a single keystroke. And I've got to shout out my all-time favorite feature, that when you're brewing on Archidekt, you can drag and drop a card from EDHREC or from Scryfall right into your deck list. This saves me so much time not having to type while I'm brewing. Even the way that they make importing a full deck list onto the site is super easy. And you know what? Archidekt even has a creators page that shows you when updates have been made to your favorite creators' decks, so you can see, for instance, what I'm trying out with my signature Baba list, or whatever new hipster strategy Dana is currently tinkering with. You can check out our deck lists linked in the description of every video at archidekt.com/EDHRECast. That's ARCHIDEKT.com/EDHRECast. Go get EDHREC'd at Archidekt. All right, I'll start us off. Our listener challenge this week comes to us from a patron in our Discord named Trees, who has a super spicy pick to pair up with all of the new Saga creatures that we're getting from Final Fantasy. The card Mirror Style Master is a 6-mana red human warrior with backup 1, so when it hits the field, you can give something else a +1 counter, and then temporarily give that creature the Mirror Style Master's own permanent ability with that backup effect. And its permanent ability is the following. Whenever this creature attacks, for each attacking modified creature you control, create a tapped attacking copy of it, but you exile those tokens at the end of combat. Normally, we associate modified creatures as being like +1 counters or equipment, auras, things like that. But any counter on a creature counts as that creature being modified. So all of the new Saga creatures that have lore counters on them, This will let you attack and make a bunch of extra attacking copies of those Saga creatures to get a bunch of their ETB abilities again. And depending on your deck, you maybe even will be able to mess with those counters before those creatures leave at the end of combat. Trees says that they're messing around with this in their Sigurd Jarl of Ravensthorpe deck, where it only shows up in one total deck out of the 1700 decks for that commander. But I also think the new 5-color Esperterra commander from Final Fantasy will want to take a look at this card too. If you're playing Saga creatures from the new Final Fantasy, remember that those lore counters count as modifications. So I honestly say go even further. Aki Battle Squad will give you an extra combat with your modified creatures. You can check out One with the Kami to make tokens when your modified creatures die, which the Saga creatures will do with counters on them. Kodama of the West Tree will give them trample, help you find lands, and wouldn't you know it, there's a Boros version of Sephiroth that also helps out your modified creatures. So yeah, this is a very interesting rules interaction here. Trees, thank you so much for pointing out such a cool effect. Take a look at these cards, these modifications, if you are playing with any of those Saga creatures.
Well, I'm going to take the next challenge then. And so this one is actually coming from a pretty popular commander from the last pre-con set, which is Fellow Thar the Steadfast. And so, Joe, you and I were talking about this, and there's a card that I agree is a little overplayed, and I want to call some more attention to that. And that card is Wakestone Gargoyle. So it's 3 and a white for a 3/4 with Defender and Flying, and has the activated ability to pay 1 and a white and have creatures you control with Defender can attack this turn as though they did not have Defender. So there's a lot going on in these Fellow Thar decks. It's a toughness matters, defenders matter type of deck that you want to be building here. And there's a lot of effects out there that you do want to be putting in the deck. There's cards like Assault Formation, which give you the ability to have creatures you control assign combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And then you can turn off Defender on all of your creatures. There's stuff like that to make sure that your creatures are going to turn on. But Wakestone Gargoyle does only one of those two things, where it removes Defender from your creatures, but it doesn't actually let you deal combat damage with your toughness, which means sometimes all those 0/4s, even though they can't attack, they're attacking as 0/4s, which means you're only doing half the job, and it's the less important half in order to actually be dominating the battlefield the way that you want to be doing it. Now, I know Wakestone Gargoyle came in that pre-con, but still 32% of players are playing Wakestone Gargoyle in those Fellow Thar lists, and I think that is wrong. This is probably one of the first cards you want to cut, not one of the last. And so if you are building Fellow Thar, if you're picking up the precons from the Dragonstorm set, make sure you cut Wakestone Gargoyle. It's just not cutting it. You do need to be finding other options that are going to make sure you're dealing the combat damage you want to be dealing. That is so much more important than just pillow forting and hiding behind a bunch of walls. So again, Fellow Thar decks, cut Wakestone Gargoyle. It's not the one for you.
Yeah, completely agree. It doesn't do the job that other redundant pieces in your deck can help you out with as backups instead. This one, it gets a thumbs down from me. Matt, I like this challenge. Let's yeet that one out of these lists. Goodbye, Wakestone Gargoyle.
Yeet and skitty. What you should do is take that Wakestone Gargoyle and send it out to somebody on cardsphere.com/EDHRECast. How about that? That is a good use of Wakestone Gargoyle. It's a way to get yourself some credit into Cardsphere, and then you can turn it into cards that you actually do want in your deck. So we did it. We cracked the code on ways to make Wakestone Gargoyle worth it.
Fantastic. Okay, Matt, let's get back to our topic here, asking about the top most popular commanders that we've seen from sets so far this year, and whether they will last or what fate might befall them in the future. And we'll move now to the Dragonstorm set. We were just talking about a Tarkir Dragonstorm commander after all. The commanders from Dragonstorm have been very, very spicy. I think a lot of people were really excited to go back to that setting. And the number one most popular commander from Dragonstorm is Teval the Balanced Scale, who we just had an Upping the Average video come out for very recently, by the way. If you want to upgrade your Teval deck, give that video a look. Link will be in the description. This is a 4-mana Sultai Spirit Dragon, 4/4 flying. Whenever it attacks, you mill 3 cards, and you may return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. This thing has nearly 12,000 decks to its name so far, and this is a relatively new set. Teval is going wild.
It's capturing Teval of our imagination.
Boo.
That one was really forced. I'm sorry. Teval, though, checks all the boxes. It's super powerful. It's in super popular color combination, Sultai. This, I don't see Taval going anywhere. If anything, I see Taval going further and further up because it feeds itself. It is its own setup, its own payoff card. I got to play the precon actually this past weekend where a buddy of mine got all these precons and we got to play them against each other. Taval took over. It was so stinking powerful. It did so many different things. I would be shocked if this isn't long-term one of the most popular commanders in Sultai colors and just in general.
Sidisi Brood Tyrant was the number one Sultai commander for a while, and it eventually faded. Muldrotha came out and replaced that, but Taval has now been like, hey, remember how much you like Sidisi? Well, I'm a better Sidisi. I have power crept Sidisi somehow. This is already the number 4 Sultai legend and the rank number 89 commander overall. So just within a couple of months, it has already shot up to within the top 100. I agree with you, Matt. I think it only continues to rise.
Yeah, there's just so much going on with it. It's such a powerful effect. It's doing things in just a shift off of what Sultai is typically known for. Like you can do lands matter now, which is a super popular thing. And it's just, there's so much value to be gained. I think it's probably a modern day Muldrotha, if anything. It's going to just give you a way to accrue so much value from every little thing that you're doing. And you're going to just amass armies. And it's good for high power magic. If you want to build those super powerful bracket 4 decks, you can totally do that. If you want to build a lower power, more social brackets 2 deck, that's totally doable. It's just as a precon itself, it's still doing a lot of really powerful things. I really like it. I like I said, it's going to be here for a long time.
Yeah, already within the top 100 after like 2-3 months, something like that. That is a huge spike, and so far I'm not seeing the activity die down at all. So Taval, good for you. I'm sure you're going to keep going. The other top commanders from Dragonstorm have not been quite as meteoric of a rise, but they are still pretty impressive. The next most popular one is Zurgo Stormrender, the Mardu precon face commander. 3 mana 3/3 Orc Warrior with Mobilize 1, so whenever it attacks, you get a tapped and attacking 1/1 Red Warrior creature token. You sacrifice that token at the beginning of the next end step, and it says whenever creature tokens you control leave the battlefield, you draw a card if that token was attacking, otherwise each opponent loses 1 life. So bit of aggression. Maybe you can sustain yourself by having attacked with those tokens. Maybe you can do some even extra damage as those mobilized tokens are going away at the end of your turn. Lots of tokeny stuff in Mardu. It's the number 8 Mardu commander overall right now, and about 8,000 decks to its name. How are we feeling about Zurgo? Is this one that we think might continue going, or has it plateaued, or will it fade? Where are you falling with this guy?
I think there's going to be a similar trajectory with Zurgo Stormrender. This is really doing. Okay. I think it's super powerful. Anything that's giving you tokens and putting this type of effect in the command zone where you get to draw cards, which rewards you for creating all of your token mess. That's super great. You don't even have to do the tokens that are created with Zurgo's ability from Mobilize 1. You can just make a bunch of tokens, drop Zurgo, and then you draw 5 or 6 cards immediately after you cast your commander. That's so good. It discourages chump blocks. There's a lot of abilities you can put on your tokens. I really like Zurgo Stormrender. It's already the number 8 most popular Mardu commander. I think that there's a little room for it to grow still when you look at the other Mardu commanders that it's competing against.
Okay, that's fair. I think I'm having more of a feeling that it might crest but then plateau. Once it starts having to encounter the likes of Ishin, 2 Heavens of 1, or Caesar, Legions of Emperor, which are also very popular, low to the ground, aggressive, do cool stuff with tokens types of commanders. I think that it might not be able to breach past that ceiling personally, but that's just my current feeling on it. So I think we have different expectations for this one, but I see where you're coming from for sure.
Well, next up we have Kotis the Fangkeeper. So this is already showing up as the number 9 Sultai commander in the past 2 years with over 7,000 decks to its name. So this is doing fairly well for itself as well. Kotis is 1 and Sultai colors, so a black, a blue, and a green for a 2/1 zombie warrior with indestructible, and has whenever Kotis deals combat damage to a player, exile the top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt, and you may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. So it is a Sultai theft deck. It does really well at doing that. And like I said, it's got over 7,000 decks to its name. I actually don't know what to think about this one because I didn't think it was going to be this popular to begin with.
That's just it. It's competing with another Sultai legend, which has had such an astonishing rise that to me, I thought that that might kind of take up all of the air in the room. And yet, Kodos is doing really well for itself. I think a lot of people want to have a good home for a villainous wealth type of deck, probably is kind of what this is echoing back to. And we had... what is it from the Outlaws of Thunder Junction? Gonti, Canny Inquisitor, which also feels like an interesting theft home. But this is another take on that same strategy. It is approaching Gonti's place and probably will surpass Gonti. But I again see probably that being enough of a strategy that has been revisited so many times that maybe this will be another that plateaus. But that's just my take. And maybe Kodos would disagree with me and steal my stuff as a result of my opinion there.
There definitely might be a case of fatigue when it comes to a Sultai commander doing this very thing, because, like you said, Gonti Canny Inquisitor was not that long ago in the big scheme of things.
Right.
And if you combine those two, like that, there's 8,200 decks under Gonti's name, and then 7,300 for Kodos Fangkeeper. That's 15,000 decks right there, which is good enough to be the number 3 commander in Sultai colors if they would just focus and kind of share their decks. So I think this is kind of a case where there's 2 commanders that are competing for only so many slots, and so they're kind of taking away, and that in a way puts a ceiling on how many decks can be created for either one of them, because every player is split on which one they're trying to do, even though they're doing pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. They are a different take on that strategy, but they require different setup, different support pieces, and as a result, yes, it's nice to have options if you enjoy that theft strategy in Sultai, but they are such direct competitors that, yeah, I see that being a clash between the two of them rather than a clash between Kodos and other things in Sultai, or even Kodos and the rest of Tarkir.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I kind of want to ask, like, not only will these ones that we've seen, these top 3 last, and yes, we think that Teval definitely will.
Yeah.
We're undecided on Zergo. We have kind of a similar opinion about Kodos. But I also kind of want to ask about like the other stuff from Tarkir, because to be honest, this top 3 surprised me. I don't know if you felt the same way.
It did surprise me a little bit, if only because there's 2 Sultai commanders, and I know that it's a super popular color combination, but I'm surprised that one of the Temur commanders didn't get there. I'm not surprised that the Precon Ureni of the Unwritten isn't more popular, because it's kind of doing the same thing that Myram Sentinel Worm is doing, where it's dragons and it's doing only dragons. And so there's just so much competition in Temur colors for a dragon strategy. But Eshki Dragonclaw feels like there are a bunch of people that were super, super high on both Eshkis, to be honest. And so both of them being fairly low is kind of surprising to me. I thought at least one would be significantly more popular than either of those 2 currently are showing to be.
Yeah, I feel you. The one that was a huge surprise for me was either Felothar or Baator, the ones that care about toughness. You had mentioned Felothar the Steadfast in your challenge, the stats. That is such a callback to a classic early commander archetype that was led by Dorn the Siege Tower of the Obzon Toughness Matters, which, I don't know, I associate Dorn with being one of like the true first commanders that people wanted to like spark some interest around the format as it was beginning to lift off the ground at all. So to have such a direct, amazing referral back to that moment, and for them to be really good at it, one of them helping you draw cards, the other one helping you cut your opponent's life totals in half, for them to not be quite as popular. Felothar has 6,300 decks to its name, and Baator only has 3,600. I was just really surprised. I thought that Toughness Matter stuff would take off, and yet it really hasn't.
Yeah, that's fairly surprising to me. I'm not actually surprised at all at the lack of Jeskai representation towards the top.
Yeah.
They're not really doing anything super unique or new compared to what just every other Jeskai commander really has shown us what they like to do with casting a lot of spells and non-creature stuff. So yeah, I'm not too surprised at that. But yeah, everything else in between is rather surprising to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Obzon commanders each being like half as popular as the top Sultai commanders. I did not have that on my bingo card for this set. But
fair.
Congratulations to Teval. I think that is the real takeaway that we'll have from the top commanders of Dragonstorm. That Teval and, as you had pointed out, potentially Zergo will continue to go up and up and up. They seem to really be the standouts, and I will not be surprised if in a year from now, even 2 years from now, even 3 years from now, Teval is still up in that top 100, if not the top 50. That Sultai Dragonmander has really just shot up and currently has no signs of slowing down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of bold, but it'd be really interesting to see if it happens, for sure.
All right, Matt. Well, we'll go from one of the fan favorite sets of the past long while, Dragonstorm, to now the set before that, which was one of the more forgettable sets that we've had in recent memory, unfortunately. Aetherdrift.
I was going to say, what are you talking about? Foundations was a great set. That was the last set, right?
Oh, yeah. So you're saying you've actually genuinely forgotten Aetherdrift. That's how forgettable it was. All right, I see you.
I guess I did. And in that case, I'm going to follow your lead because, Aetherdrift, I can't remember anything about it other than cars and stuff. It was a very forgettable set. Commander, just overall, it didn't do much, I guess.
Yeah, it has one interesting entrant here amongst its top commanders, which has made a decent name for itself, but the rest of the set kind of landed with the player base a little bit more with a thud than with a whole bunch of excitement. The way that we saw people, like Dragonstorm hype was wildfire. It was terrific. The most popular commander from Aetherdrift was from the commander precons. That's Hashiton Scarab's Fist, which was the backup commander to the Temet deck. Hashiton is a 2-mana Orzhov commander, but it has blue in its tax box here, so it is an Esper commander in total. A 2-mana 1/3 zombie wizard. Whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 in a blue. If you do, create a tapped token that is a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. And it's currently got nearly 14,000 decks to its name. So, again, doing well for itself. Proud of you, Hashiton. I know a lot of people are having fun with cycling a creature and then turning it into a token and doing more stuff with those tokens. It is a cool space to explore. It is probably, however, one of the only highlights from Aetherdrift in total, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I did see a Temet Noctimoon's Will. Thought that one might have a little bit of a chance, but I feel that's the number 2 commander, but it's like almost half the amount of decks. It's 7,600 decks right now for Temet Noctimoon's Will, which is fine. But man, I thought that there was going to be just significantly less decks because everything's so forgettable. It was Esper Zombies, which was kind of a retread a little bit. There was just not a lot going on. I don't know. Everything about the set just seemed very forgettable from the commanders and the precons. I know that in 60 card formats, I know Ketramos, the new Dawn, is kind of making a big splash with Flicker type of decks and everything going on there. But for commander, there's not a whole lot to like from this set.
Which is kind of interesting that Temet Noctimoon's Will isn't more popular because zombies are an insanely popular creature type for people to build around. Wilhelt is a hugely popular commander, but I think maybe it is kind of like the Ur-Dragon in that way where it's just cool, but we found the one that is sort of the main thing that everyone will go towards. So other entrants into that category have an uphill battle. And that's kind of why we saw Temet didn't have quite as much success compared to Hashiton, who is it is a zombie, but it does not need to be built around zombies. It can do other playful stuff with things that cycle, for instance.
When you look at every card and just what is getting played coming from Aetherdrift, that's just not very exciting. There wasn't a whole lot of unique stuff going on. I don't know, it hasn't really done a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, and also in the top 3, the third most popular commander from the set with 7,400 decks to its name is Mendicant Core, Guidelight, and Azorius robot commander that gets bigger equal to the number of artifacts you control and then has that start your engines max speed stuff that, you know what, it can copy your artifacts if you get to max speed. That's kind of interesting, I guess. And I'll give credit where it's due. It is the number 5 most popular Azorius commander right now. But I don't know, it's got 7,400 decks to its name, and the top Azorius commander has nearly 20,000. So I think it's going to stay exactly where it's at, is unfortunately the reality there.
I don't know that the ceiling is all that high for Mendicant either. And it's also doing something in an incredibly crowded field, which is trying to do artifact things in a base blue strategy, which there's so much competition. You really have to stand out if you want to be doing something in the artifact theme and copying artifacts and doing it in blue, because there's so much competition. That's probably one of the most dense fields there. So I don't see Mendicant going all that much higher. I don't see anything from Aetherdrift, barring some sort of game-breaking synergy that's going to come out in the future. But I know people are excited about Captain Howler Sea Scourge for a little bit there, just doing discard things, but that hasn't panned out either because, again, is it discard cycling stuff? That's been tread a few times now, and it's not really been particularly popular whenever it has done.
Yeah. Again, Hashiton ends up being the ultimate standout here. It is the number 4 Esper commander. The delta between Hashiton and Esper, and then the third most popular Esper commander, which is Olero, is only like about 600 decks, and the second place commander, it's, you know, a difference of maybe 1,000 decks. That second place Esper commander is Urza Chief Artificer. It's got 14,500, and Hashiton has nearly 14,000. So like Hashiton is definitely able to make a name for itself in the way that other commanders from the set unfortunately just aren't. And I think a big ingredient for that is Hashiton's capabilities in the CEDH versions of the game, where it can combo out and do some very interesting stuff there, which will help supply it with sustained interest.
Yeah, I think that's probably the nicest thing that we can say about very much from the set, just in general. Like, I know that we're really hard on this set, but it was just super forgettable. I remember everybody was up in arms, and I think the art from all these different things that were going on, and thankfully, at least for the time being, this looks like it's going to be the last of the Magic with hats type of sets.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Which I'm guessing that players kind of got tired with it and just tuned out for the most part, but also because we had just come off of Magic Foundations, which was one of the best sets that we've had in a long time. And then we went straight into Dragonstorm after Aetherdrift. And so it was kind of sandwiched in between two foundational sets, and pun intended, with what was going on with Aetherdrift. And so the circumstances were never going to be kind to cards from Aetherdrift. It really had to knock it out of the park, and just the design of the set just wasn't it. So timing more than anything, I think really, really hurt Aetherdrift.
It does feel like the last gasp of that Magic but with hats, as you were saying, which set up the stage for Dragonstorm to be such a wonderful return to form, and for people to get so excited because it was finally breaking free from that mold and returning to some just true, honest, genuine Magic IP that feels like Magic IP rather than Magic IP that's wearing a different skin or trying to be Fast and Furious or trying to be an 80s horror movie or trying to be a Western or trying to be a detective, like all of that.
Trying to be anything other than what it is, which is a fantasy card game.
Yeah. And Aetherdrift kind of represents one of the last moments of that. Hopefully we don't return to it again anytime too soon, because clearly the popularity that we've seen so quickly with Dragonstorm is a big signal from players of how much they're enjoying that. But that is ultimately why Aetherdrift ends up where it is. And Matt, to your point, when we have this question in our notes here about like, hey, were there any sleeper hits from this set that you think could or whatever?
Nope.
We were like, nah.
Nah, we can talk about literally anything else and it'd be more productive.
Yeah. So I do have one final question that I want to ask about the nature of this, commanders shifting around within these top spots, ones that rise up, and will they be flash in the pan or not? On the horizon, we have the sets upcoming Edge of Eternities, taking place in outer space, a Spider-Man Marvel set, and an Avatar The Last Airbender set at the end of 2025. So I am curious if there are any commanders currently that you think are poised to see surges again throughout the rest of this year whenever any of those sets come out. What do you have your eye on that could rise up later on in 2025?
I mean, anything that cares about Legends. I know that I have a Shanid Sleeper's Scourge deck, which is Mardu Legends, and that deck has gotten so much juice from Final Fantasy alone, not even looking towards everything that went on with Dragonstorm, which also had a lot of really good legends that fit in those Mardu colors. So anything that cares about just legendary creatures in general, you're going to have so many toys coming out because, I mean, with Final Fantasy, like I made the joke last week that there was one non-legendary creature in the entire set. But it's not that much of an exaggeration. It feels true. And so, especially with Spider-Man and Avatar Last Airbender, with such beloved franchises, it probably is going to be more of the same, where there's going to be 50 plus legends in this set just because there's so many characters that they want to touch on. Edge of Eternities might be a reprieve and might be kind of more like the Foundations, more like Dragonstorm, where it feels like a normal Magic set, which isn't even normal anymore because normal is now the exception. So, but I obvious pick is going to be anything that cares about legendary creatures or just more legends in them in general. Like my Shanid deck is feasting the past few months.
I'm almost like half mad at you because I had written down the literal exact same thing here. Just looking at the Final Fantasy set that just came out, it gave us 164 new legendary creatures, and future Universes Beyond sets are likely to do nearly the
exact same.
With all those characters too. So the one that I wrote down here was Joda the Unifier, the 5-color Legends Matter commander, who was busted in half. And I think he's already still currently like the rank number 15 commander, but I would wager that like, oh, he might push up into the top as we're getting all of these fantastic legends that only make this already powerful commander even more powerful. So I'm right there with you. The number of legendary creatures we're getting will have a big effect on other commanders that care about that. So that's where I've got my eye on for sure.
Yeah, you've got Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. You've got all of those commanders that just have a deep, deep pool, and just the floor is just rising so quickly. And I think players might finally hit a tipping point where playing 5-color legends players do love a challenge. We are Magic players. There is some sort of like, we want to do some homework on it. So if you have a Legends Matter deck that isn't necessarily in all 5 colors, Sarah Pharaon, for example, is one of the new cards from Final Fantasy, but that is Selesnya Legends. So something like that that's a little more limited in scope. I'm curious, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I'm very, very curious if those start to gain a little bit more popularity, because you can't make cuts realistically in. You may as well just build a new Joda deck or build a new Sisay Weatherlight Captain deck, because those cards, like, there's so much competition. It is such a tight list if you're playing, optimizing those types of cards. If you're playing at bracket 3 and bracket 4. So maybe having a reset with fewer colors might be something that players start to do more often. I would love for that to happen. I love when players do have a little more restriction on their decks instead of playing just 5 colors in a commander that gives me access to them.
No, that's fair. I think, actually, to refer back to the video that we made earlier this week about Atraxa no longer occupying the number 1 spot and Ur-Dragon taking over, there was a lot to, look over there. The surge of cards that we got from Dragonstorm giving a lot of attention to commanders that care about dragons, Mirim, Kaalia, Ur-Dragon, of course. So that sets up Ur-Dragon to succeed. But also, another thing that I wanted to put into that video is exactly what you were saying just there. Atraxa has been so broad for so long, but eventually some people do start biting into that territory little by little, where like, oh, well, here's a commander like the new Titus, for instance, which is doing stuff with counters. Well, if I want to do stuff with counters, maybe I'll get a little bit more specific in this area. Or here's a commander that does planeswalkers in a new way.
Yeah,
well, maybe I'll chop a color off, but I'll go and do planeswalkers in this more direct, focused version of that. And I'll go to Karth the Lion or something else like that. So Atraxa, by being so broad, also has more territory that can be usurped in ways that might not be true for commanders that care about just a single creature type. So to your point about will things kind of fracture or splinter off a little bit, I think we've seen evidence that that can be the case. That can be true for commanders that are so far reaching.
I hope that does happen too, because that just means in the end, there's more variety when it comes to what you're going to see at events. So what you're going to see at your local game store and just in general.
Oh, yeah. As some other little tidbits real quick, we saw stun counters and tapping things down is represented in upcoming Spider-Man cards. So I think something like Hilda of the Icy Crown decks, they could get a boost when that set comes around. I think also that in the Avatar set, something like Earthbending could end up being represented by landfall effects. And I mean, hey, I'm Team Toph. I would build a Toph deck no matter what that card does. But I just anticipate Lands Matter being a thing for that set, and therefore we might see a spike for that archetype. I think more hero cards from Marvel stuff could end up having a knock-on effect for the new commanders that care about that creature type now. And speaking of creature types, if Airbender cards in the Avatar set are represented by the monk creature type, then maybe commanders like the Archimandrite would tick up too, since it cares about monks. But like, all of these are like little small pings on my radar, but I'm ultimately with you that the overall trend of Legends Matter getting all these new toys is the biggest thing to anticipate affecting deck counts by far.
And there's so much competition for everybody's attention span that it's a really, really hard line to walk. Like, are you going to have something cool and unique that does something fun, if maybe a little specific, or are you going to go more with you're in the colors and you're doing something really broken and it's really powerful? And finding that balance. I mean, we talk all the time about how the design team for Magic, it's a really thankless job. It's a really difficult job finding that balance. So I wonder if players are going to find a new balance too, where it's not so much the broken stuff, but what can we do that's a little more challenging to build the deck?
Well, that's a good point too. With all of the fan favorite characters that are coming out, you want to play those decks everywhere as much as you can as possible. And if they're like crazy powerful, that might segment off pieces of the other player base that you would want to play those decks with. And if I just want to enjoy, here's a character that I really, really like from the set, then I don't necessarily need to supercharge it, because I would like to be able to play that deck more often with more people. So hopefully there's kind of that player counterbalance or self-regulation that could be, I would like to see that too. So I'm right there with you. I am excited. There's a lot on the horizon, and there's been a lot shifting here just with the top commanders too. It is a tumultuous time, to say the least. Like,
Yeah,
one of my
absolutely.
favorite parts of that video that we made was to watch the ways that the commanders shift amongst the top spots. It felt to me like watching like the tide in the ocean or something, or like watching waves. I think it's really cool to see the ways that things can shift around, and we don't have to have these commanders locked into any specific position. There's a lot that can morph over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see what that morphs like in the future. And out there in listener land too, definitely let us know what commanders you think people are kind of sleeping on that might overtake some of their contemporaries. What's being slept on, what might have a chance to rise, or what is something that you think people are going to get tired of too? Are there cards out there? Are there legends out there that, man, people are going to do the thing once and they're going to say, okay, we did it, and pack up from there. So let us know in the comments. We definitely want to know what everybody thinks out there, because there's a lot out there that's happening. There's probably going to be more shifts in the near future just with all the legends that we're getting.
Yeah, very, very much. A tumultuous time. But yeah, I definitely want to hear from listeners if there are any commanders that they think will last, but we didn't, or commanders that they think might be a little bit more flash in the pan. So there's a lot of opinions out there about all of these movements. So let us know what your thoughts are. Matt, this has been a really fun episode to go over. I'm excited to see how it all turns out for the rest of 2025. But with that, I think we are going to call this episode to a close now. So thank you so much for joining me. If our listeners want to get in touch with us, where is it that they can find you online, bro?
So you can find me on pretty much any social media platform at Mathimus55. That's MATHIMUS55. And don't forget, we are proud to work together with Dragon Shield to provide the best sleeves, the best accessories, the best card scanning app. If you need to get organized like I do, their card scanning app is pretty much the best you can do. So check out their card scanning app and get organized with Dragon Shield.
And you can find me everywhere online, from Instagram to Blue Sky at Joseph M. Schultz. And you can find the cast online at EDHRECast. And don't forget, June 14th and 15th at about noon is the FlyQuest event with EDHREC and Architect. Go to flyquest.gg/dualland to learn more. That's flyquest.gg/dualland. And of course, if you'd like to get access to any exclusive content, you can also support us over at patreon.com/EDHRECast. Hop into our Discord, get access to exclusive videos and more over at patreon.com/EDHRECast. Listeners, we'll be back at you next week with more data and insights, but until then, remember, EDH wreck your deck before you wreck your deck.